about these scenarios as they're cut off from command, and they're having to sort of put together the pieces of the puzzle themselves. They're completely lost in this environment, and everyone is hostile to them. And so there's this element of mistaken identity that's happening there, and actually it gets very, very interesting the further you get in the story. You start to unravel some of these pieces of the puzzle and find out why certain events are happening in the game, and those really reflect back on those characters and the way that they evolve.
And the storm, all of the sand, is that going to incorporate into the game somehow, or is it just landscape?
So obviously the sand gives us a lot of opportunities, both visually but also in the gameplay. We really wanted that to come alive and to make the environment as dynamic as possible. And so there's a lot of ways that you actually get to interact with the sand in the game. So for example, you can cause sand avalanches to crush enemies if you're perceptive and look for the way sand's piled up on windows and barricades and things like that. You can also throw frag grenades into the sand and kick up sand into the eyes of enemies and stun them and use that to your advantage. Also, we play around with this element of uncertain ground. So quite often you're walking on a sand dune that looks like your standard sand dune anywhere in a desert, but you're actually walking on top of a skyscraper that's been entombed by sand. And so you may be on a glass roof and actually fall through into an entombed hotel lobby that has been untouched since the day the sandstorms arrived. So the sand provides a lot of visual contrast. I think it looks amazing. It really rounds out the edges of a lot of this beautiful architecture that's there in Dubai, and sort of strikes the imagination with the way that we've pushed this to sort of a hyper-real situation.
As far as your squad making decisions, do you make decisions with your squad, and does it change how they interact with you, or what are some of the decisions you were talking about?
Sure. So, you know, we have these two characters with us throughout this journey. We don't change timelines or change character perspectives or anything like that, because we wanted you to build this relationship with those characters. And they each have their own perspective and their own characters. They're not just guys who go along with whatever you tell them to do. And that ties into the gameplay as well. So like the squad commands that you have in the game begin to evolve. The squad begins to react to choices the players made and the horrific situations they've been in. But just sort of out of the narrative grew a lot of opportunities to let the player make a choice. A lot of scenarios that other games would maybe put in a cutscene or an explicit narrative moment where you have limited control. We give the player full control with all the mechanics we provided earlier in the experience, and allow him to make decisions. And a lot of times, just like decisions that soldiers make on the modern battlefield, they're very, very tough decisions. So decisions that don't have a sort of instant good or bad outcome that you can really determine from the start of those decisions. And a lot of times those soldiers have to live with those choices that they make for the rest of their lives, and it really affects them emotionally. And so we did our research with our military advisor, and also did a lot of reading about actual scenarios that soldiers find themselves in modern military conflicts. We really wanted to allow the player to get his hands dirty and really sort of get that exact same feeling that those soldiers have on the battlefield and contemplate how that would affect him in that situation.
Yeah, so you want it to be more of an emotional experience as well, married with the action.
Definitely. Like, I really feel personally that when you have a very strong context behind all the action that's on the screen, and it's actually, you know, it has meaning, that those things become much more, you know, inviting and much more interesting. And you know, even your standard combat, when you really understand who you're fighting and you understand the emotions that your characters are feeling, those things just really come alive.
What kind of different environments can we expect? Because there's the skyscrapers and then obviously the open sand streets. What kind of environments can we expect?
Yeah, so Dubai gives us all sorts of opportunities. You may have noticed at the start of the game, you actually are in a wide open desert environment following this failed caravan, this evacuation caravan that's attempting to leave the city. And you're sort of going the opposite direction that they were. You're going into the city, deeper into Dubai. And so we actually follow this path, this road that's actually a real place, a real road in Dubai called Sheikh Zayed Road. It's a 16-lane highway that sort of goes straight down the middle of the city with a canyon of skyscrapers on both sides. And so that's a landmark that we follow throughout this journey. But there's just so much variety in the different types of spaces that you're going to encounter. Some of of which have been entombed by the sand and completely preserved. So you're going to see like white tablecloths laid out perfectly on tables, you know, crystal chandeliers, very beautiful and opulent art pieces expressing the wealth and the beauty that's there. And then you're also going to find, you know, very confined and destroyed spaces that have been sort of shredded by the sandstorms. And then, like I mentioned, these wide open environments that really contrast with that. We wanted to sort of keep you on your toes, wanting to look around every corner and find something new, because that's really the way Dubai is. There's all these projects there, like, you know, even indoor ski resorts and like cool sand beaches, like just not anything you can imagine is going on there. And so we really wanted to allow the player to experience that.
All right. And when can we expect Spec Ops The Line to release?
Spec Ops The Line comes out on June 26th.
All right. How did you come up with the idea for the rundown bus?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's sort of a cool thing in and of itself, even if it weren't like symbolic of anything in the game, but it really is. Like at the start of the game, you may have noticed that there's a bus that's actually sort of propped up on a barricade that's collapsed, and it's filled with sand. And if you look for opportunities like that throughout the environment, you can actually shoot those windows and cause that sand to rush out and crush enemies. So that bus is a lot like this one, especially after combat. This one's pretty destroyed. Like looks like some grenades went off in here.
Oh yeah.
But you know, a lot of the cover objects in the game are very similar to this. They sort of grow organically out of the scenarios. So like on the roads, you're taking cover behind sports cars and things like that. And you know, in these opulent spaces, you're taking cover behind those really amazing art pieces that are destructible and things like that. And so, yeah, I think there's great cover situations, and this bus is sort of an expression of one of those.
Well, thank you, Cory.
Yeah.
We look forward to playing Spec Ops The Line on
Thanks a lot.
June 26th.
Yeah.
All right.
Really appreciate you playing it.
Thank you.